Have you ever thought about living abroad? Not just as an international student, but I'm talking about taking your family, going to a different country for either business opportunities or for a position with your multinational company. This is becoming more and more common. Gone are the days where perhaps Intel or Microsoft sent you to India to open up a factory and they'd pay for your taxes and give you a nice little setup and have your family taken care of. Now it's become so commonplace where those kind of packages are gone, but the opportunities still exist. I was recently fascinated with an article that I read in The Economist by a journalist named Helen Joyces. Now she's from London and she details her family's experiences. They've moved from London to Sao Paulo, Brazil. And while she loves it, at times has been a turbulent and an insecure move and transition for her family. So I thought that I would use her article to portray some of the difficulties that are faced when a family moves to a different country. And I'll specifically be using Sao Paulo, Brazil, because I thought it was a fascinating place, and also it is probably the hub of Southern Hemisphere business, especially in Latin America. Now, just some interesting statistics about Sao Paulo. So, in the city proper, there's about 11 million people. However, there's suburbs surrounding the city, so it's estimated that about 18 to 20 million people live in the metro area. Now, one thing that's funny is that it's a concrete jungle, as you can imagine, but so many people own cars in Sao Paulo that about half of the residents own cars, which is more cars than would fill up all the streets of Sao Paulo if they were aligned bumper to bumper. So, traffic is a nightmare. Now, this was her first experience in Brazil, is getting off the airplane and taking 2 hours to drive a few miles to her hotel. So, because Brazil is bustling right now, it's one of the BRICS, there are 21 billionaires that live in Sao Paulo. And also, with the horrible traffic and the amount of wealth in the city, it makes Sao Paulo as the #1 hub of helicopters in the world, with over 200 helipads and a fleet that's estimated to be in the thousands of helicopters. So, just some things to consider as you are possibly moving your family to a different country for a business opportunity. I'll go over such things such as culture, business environment, geography, and considerations for your family to take as well. So first of all, with Sao Paulo, looking at the geography, now I mentioned that there's many suburbs, and most of the natives live in the suburbs and then commute into downtown for their daily jobs. They spend an average of about 2 hours each way commuting, whether that's on one of the 4 metro lines for the subway, or in a city bus, which is the most common way, or in their own car. Most people would say that Sao Paulo isn't a typical pretty Southern American location. In fact, most of vacationing done by locals is done in Rio de Janeiro, which is only about 270 miles away. Now, even though it may not be the most beautiful place in the world, the weather is gorgeous. It's about 70 to 83 degrees year-round, and it rains about 130 days a year. So, looking now more so at the culture, you'll see that Sao Paulo is one of the most diverse cities in the world. It's home to the biggest population of Japanese expatriates in the world outside of Japan. Also, thousands and thousands of German and Italian immigrants have found homes in Sao Paulo. Now, also, there's a very distinct difference between the classes there. Many people are rich, but even more people are poor. And because of the hyperinflation that existed in Brazil up until 1994, there is a very strong sense of materialism. Brazil has the trait of being spenders, they're not ones to save their money for a rainy day. And so there's a lot of competition as far as showing your wealth, whether that would be through nice cars or having the latest brands. As an economy, Brazil is doing very well. The world has recently been shuddering under the wake of the European debt crisis and the recession in the United States. However, Brazil has plunged forward and has had growing GDP over the last few years. So because of this, the population as a whole has been increasing their quality of life. It's not just the rich, but it's safe to say that everybody is living at a better style of life than they were even 10 years ago. Now, with the growing economy, it's becoming more and more expensive for expatriates to live there. You can only buy about a third of what you could 10 years ago as an American expatriate with your American dollar. The Brazilian real, their currency, is very strong, but it has an unfavorable exchange rate with us. We, for our dollar, would only get half of a real. Now, transportation, most expatriates find that it's more beneficial for them to live directly across the street or within walking distance from their job. And that's because of the horrible traffic. People try to avoid driving at all costs. And so it's also can be a little bit dangerous, public transportation. So walking, especially during daylight hours, is the way to go. However, it is very easy to transfer your driver's license from an American driver's license to a 6-month temporary Brazilian driver's license. Now, looking at the business life, because seeing how that's probably the principal reason you'll be going down there, the lifestyle there is a little bit different, where the work days are 9 to 6, which sounds normal, but it's completely normal for meetings to occur after 6 p.m. Most of Brazil points their fingers at Sao Paulo as being a workaholic culture. And so lots of these meetings are scheduled for later at night. And although Brazilians are perhaps more punctual than many Latin American cultures, they're completely understanding when somebody is 15 to 30 minutes late because of traffic. And all meetings start with about 5 to 10 minutes of socialization, just small talk, and especially about their favorite topic, soccer, and especially the Brazilian national team. And most people might think that it's kind of funny to have strangers, business acquaintances come into the room, and what do you do in Brazil? You get up and you don't give them a handshake, but you hug. And emails are a lot of times sent not with the closing line "sincerely" or best regards, but with hugs and kisses. I thought that was pretty fun. Now, with your family, you want to make sure that you're safe. There are lots of opportunities for growth, but it's also a good place where there are petty crimes because of all of the population. So things such as being careful using an ATM, not carrying around much cash, and being careful when you're driving as to have the windows up and the doors locked at all times are considerations which should be heeded. So you'll also be glad to know that tap water in Brazil is safe, and when there are many international schools that are of very good quality, so your kids can receive a quality education. And because of the strong amount of American influence, there are even wards of the church that speak English there. So this is just a little introduction to some of the investigation that you can do on cities that are interesting to you, and especially where you could see yourself doing business for a company that interests you. But I find it highly appealing to take my family someday and to head to one of these countries to have an adventure. And so that's a little bit about Sao Paulo, Brazil.